Today, we're going to talk about one of history's greatest monsters, a killer that haunted humanity for thousands of years. And we're going to talk about the quiet country doctor who figured out how to stop it.
So to really get this story, you have to understand just how high the stakes were. Back in the 18th century, smallpox was this terrifying, ever-present fact of life. I mean, in towns and cities where it spread like wildfire, it could kill up to 1 in 5 people, 20%. It didn't care if you were rich or poor, young or old.
So how in the world did we finally start to fight back? You'd think it would be some kind of sophisticated new medicine, right? Something discovered in a state-of-the-art lab. But nope. The answer came from a place literally no one expected.
That's right, a cow. The secret to defeating one of the most vicious diseases in human history was hiding in plain sight, on a farm. And it took a truly brilliant and observant mind to finally see the connection.
Okay, so to really appreciate what a game changer this was, we have to picture the world before it. Imagine living with this constant threat hanging over your head. People were so desperate they resorted to this terrifying gamble just for a shot at protection.
The best they had was a procedure called variolation, and it sounds absolutely horrifying. They would literally take pus from a smallpox sore and deliberately infect a healthy person with it. The hope was that you'd get a mild case and then be immune, but it was a huge gamble. You could still die from it, or you could kick off a whole new epidemic. It was a terrible choice, face a likely death or a potential one.
All right, let's meet our hero, Edward Jenner. Now, yeah, he was a country doctor, but he was so much more than that. He was a deeply respected natural scientist. His powers of observation were just legendary, and to really understand his genius, we don't need to look at his patients, we need to look at a bird.
You see, before he ever took on smallpox, Jenner solved the mystery of the cuckoo. For centuries, everyone thought the adult cuckoo was the one who pushed other eggs and chicks out of a host bird's nest. But Jenner, through incredibly patient observation, proved it was actually the newborn cuckoo chick that did all the dirty work. This discovery was so groundbreaking it got him into the prestigious Royal Society. It showed everyone this was a man who looked closer than anyone else.
And just listen to how he describes it. He doesn't just say the chick pushes the eggs out. He identifies the exact anatomical feature that makes it possible. This temporary little dent in the chick's back, perfectly shaped for shoving eggs. This is the mind of a true scientist at work, super precise, detailed, and always asking how and why.
And this scientific mindset, it wasn't just raw talent, it was trained. His mentor was the famous surgeon John Hunter, and he gave Jenner this simple, powerful piece of advice. Don't think, try. In other words, don't just sit around and theorize, get out there, test it, experiment, collect the data. And that single principle would become the foundation for his greatest achievement.
So, when this brilliant observer, a man trained to try, heard a piece of local country gossip, his ears perked up. The folklore was that milkmaids, who often got a really mild disease from cows called cowpox, seemed to be magically immune to the horrors of smallpox. Jenner's big idea was that maybe these diseases were related, that cowpox was like a gentle cousin that could teach the body how to fight off the deadly version. A lot of people had heard this rumor, but only Jenner decided to do more than just listen. He decided to try.
And this brings us to one of the most famous, and let's be honest, by today's standards, very ethically questionable, experiments in all of medical history. It was a simple test that involved a young boy, a milkmaid, and a cow, and it was about to change the world forever.
And this right here is a page from Jenner's actual notebook. It's him documenting the exact moment he turned that old folklore into hard science. The date was May 14th, 1796, the day he put it all on the line.
The process itself was daringly simple. First, Jenner took some fluid from a cowpox sore on a milkmaid's hand. Then, he inoculated an 8-year-old boy named James Phipps, who was the son of his gardener. The boy got a little sick, had a mild fever, but then he got better really quickly. But the next step, that was the most dangerous and the most important. A few weeks later, Jenner intentionally exposed the boy to smallpox. The result? James Phipps was perfectly fine. He didn't get sick at all. The theory was right.
And this is the key to his genius. Jenner wasn't the first person to hear about the milkmaid story, but he was the first one to prove it scientifically. He didn't just give someone cowpox. He then deliberately challenged that new immunity with the killer disease itself, and, crucially, he wrote it all down. He proved the protection was real.
Now, you'd think the world would have thrown him a parade right then and there. But that's not really how big breakthroughs work, is it? The first reaction was a mix of doubt, fear, and just straight-up mockery.
This famous cartoon pretty much sums up the public anxiety. People were genuinely terrified of this bizarre new procedure that came from a farm animal. I mean, the idea of being injected with something from a cow led to these wild rumors that people would start growing horns or mooing.
But while the public was panicking, the scientific community did what it's supposed to do. They tested the results for themselves, and that's when the tide really started to turn. Just a few years later, in 1802, over 100 of London's top doctors signed this document publicly declaring that Jenner's vaccination worked and it was safe. The evidence was just too strong to deny.
And from there, the idea just took off. It spread around the world with incredible speed. Even Napoleon, who was at war with Britain at the time, had his entire army vaccinated. The Spanish government launched this amazing mission, the Balmis Expedition, just to carry the vaccine across the globe. Jenner had given humanity its first real weapon against a disease.
Jenner's work wasn't just a new medical trick. It was the beginning of a promise that one day, no child would ever have to live in fear of this monster again.
This timeline just shows you the incredible journey that followed. From that single experiment in 1796, the idea grew until governments started offering it for free. The fight went on for almost 200 years, and it all led to 1980. That's when the World Health Organization made one of the greatest announcements in human history. Smallpox, the monster that had killed hundreds of millions of people, was officially eradicated from the entire planet.
You know, Jenner didn't just create the first vaccine. He basically created an entire field of science. The very words vaccine and vaccination come from vacca, which is the Latin word for cow. It's no wonder he's often called the father of immunology. He laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
Just let that sink in for a second. There are very, very few people in history you can say that about. His work saved more lives than any king, any general, any politician. An English country doctor whose only weapons were his incredible power of observation and a belief in testing his ideas.
It is just amazing to think that this massive leap for humanity all started so small, with one curious guy noticing something that everybody else had just dismissed. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the quiet observation happening right now? What piece of modern folklore holds the key to the next breakthrough that will change our world?